Great. Well, welcome to today's webinar entitled Strategies for Promoting Well-Being Across the Workplace Life Cycle. Case Studies from Rural Community Health Centers, Part 1. As you join today's webinar, you are automatically muted and your camera turned off. Feel free to enter any questions into the chat at any point, and we'll answer them during the Q&A at the end. And during Q&A, if you want to ask a question live, feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you to unmute your line. Today's session is being recorded and we'll send a copy of the slides and recording to you within the next 2 weeks. The Association of Clinicians for the Underserved, or ACU for short, was started in 1996 by alumni of the National Health Service Corps to be the voice or be the advocacy voice of the Corps, to really demonstrate the value that that members of the Corps brought to, or have been bringing to, members of underserved communities for years now. Over the years, we have expanded our scope to working around the recruitment and retention of the healthcare workforce across the board at FQHCs and within other safety net organizations across the country. And while we have changed a bit over the years, our focus remains the same, and that is improving the health of America's underserved populations and supporting the clinicians serving in those areas. To that end, the recruitment and retention of a transdisciplinary team is the road to achieving these goals. You can find out more about all the things that we do on our website, www.clinicians.org. I'm your host for today, and my name is Luke Ertl. I'm the Program Director at the Association of Clinicians for the Underserved. And I wanted to give a little bit of background as we jump into this webinar and a little bit of background on this topic. So a thriving workforce that finds joy, fulfillment, and meaning in their work is essential for delivering safe, high-quality, patient-centered care. But unfortunately, many efforts to improve workforce well-being and curb burnout, disengagement, and turnover often focus on building individual resiliency. But these individual strategies achieve minimal, if any, results. Instead, the Health Resources Services Administration, or HRSA, their 2023 Health Center Workforce Wellbeing National Data Report urges community health centers to build supportive and inclusive work environments at the organizational level through ongoing leadership endorsement and engagement wellbeing initiatives, centering staff in strategy development and implementation, and engaging a diversity of staff from both clinical and non-clinical roles. Furthermore, community health centers must integrate well-being interventions across the workplace life cycle by considering how staff is recruited, hired, engaged, and included as part of organizational design. In this two-part webinar series, we will explore how rural community health centers integrate well-being across a workplace life cycle. Today's webinar will highlight best practices and lessons learned for recruitment and retention in rural areas. And loneliness is one of today's major public health crises, and the risk of social isolation and loneliness may deter job seekers and their families from moving to a new community, especially a rural one. However, prioritization of well-being at the leadership level through work-life balance and community connections can alleviate these concerns for new recruits and help them integrate into their new community. In today's panel discussion, we'll hear perspectives from both health center CEO and clinicians on how to identify the social and family needs of new recruits and strategies for making connections that help them feel welcome in their new home. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our presenters, our panel for today. So specializing in internal medicine, Dr. Hunter is focused on the care of adults while making use of the best medical science available in caring for patients. She creates a thoughtful, meaningful doctor-patient relationship while diagnosing and treating chronic illnesses and promotes health and disease prevention. Dr. Hunter graduated medical school at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas, with a focus on adult internal medicine, and she completed an internal medicine residency. Oh, bear with me, I'm having some technical issues here. Internal medicine residency program at Pitt County Memorial Hospital in Greenville, North Carolina. Prior to joining Compassion Healthcare, she worked 14 years as an internal medicine doctor at Kaiser Permanente. In 2017, she joined Compassion Healthcare as a medical director and then transitioned to chief quality officer in 2018. She is passionate about wellness and working with patients to help them achieve the best possible health outcomes. Our second presenter, Heather Pelletier, is a St. John Valley native. She was raised in Eagle Lake. She has lived in Fort Kent, Maine for the last 24 years with her husband, John, and their teenage son, Caleb. Heather completed her 5th college degree this year with a Master's of Public Health, summa cum laude, from A.T. Still University. Heather holds degrees in medical administration, business management, accounting, financial management, fixed and variable operations, and public health. Heather's professional experience includes 9 years advancing through hospital medical clinics and hospital finance positions, 6 years as an accountant, and the past 14 years employed by Fish River Rural Health. Heather serves as the executive director and CEO of Fish River Rural Health, and Heather serves on numerous local, state, and national committees. A few local examples include serving on the Town of Fort Kent Budget Committee and University of Maine Board of Visitors. A few state examples include her board chair role for Maine's Accountable Care Organization, Community Care Partnership of Maine, a Maine Healthcare Collaborative consisting of 20 hospitals and health centers. Heather also serves as an active board member for the Maine Primary Care Association and Northeastern Workforce Development Board. Heather serves on a national level as a mentor for new CEOs of federally qualified health centers, in addition to serving on a national advisory group for CEO group core competencies. Heather has served as a notary of public since 2005, and Heather has founded several St. John Valley movements, including the St. John Valley Oral Health Stakeholders and the Fish River Rural Health Food Shelf, which provides 50,000 pounds of nutritious food to local residents last year. Heather was honored with the 2019 Community Leader Award by the University of Maine at Fort Kent Nursing Division and the 2023 Rural Health Community Star Award from the Maine Rural Health and Primary Care Program. Our final presenter or panelist is Dr. Amber Karen, and she graduated from Pacific University in 2017 and completed ocular disease residency training at Seidenberg Protzko Eye Associates in 2018. She has worked for Fish River Rural Health since 2018 as a family optometrist. She is an active member of the Maine chapter of the American Optometric Association and is a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry. When not treating patients, she loves to cook, read, crochet, and travel with her husband and their golden retriever, Daisy. And let me go ahead and stop sharing, or turn to the next slide. And let me go ahead and turn it over. Or first, I want to hear a little bit from our panelists. Dr. Hunter, could you tell us a little bit about your health center, where you're located, and the population you serve?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think it's afternoon now. I am Dr. Denise Hunter. You heard my bio. At this point, right now I work for Compassion Healthcare, which one of its locations is in Yanceyville, North Carolina. That's the main location, the one that started years ago. And we also have 3 other points of care. We have a location in Eden, North Carolina. We also have a mobile school unit. You see the picture up there, that we go out to schools and provide care to students and faculty, whoever is located at the location. And we also partner with a pharmacy, where we also have a clinical pharmacist, a local pharmacy in Yanceyville, that one of the pharmacists does provide care to our patients also. And we also have our urgent care associated with our Yanceyville location. The main campus where I work is actually a very rural community, a population of about 1,800 people, three whole stoplights in the community. And it's just a really great place to live. I'm not sure if there's anything else anyone would like to know about the location, or Luke, if there's anything else to do.
And if anybody does have any thoughts or questions they'd like to hear a little bit more of, you can go ahead and pop that in the chat. In the meantime, to keep things moving as well, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Heather to talk a little bit about her health center and community.
Thank you, Luke. Fish River Rural Health, we were designated a federally qualified health center in 1990, but we have existed since the 70s, which would explain how I've been a patient at Fish River Rural Health since the 1st grade. So the movement started in the 70s. We are the northern crown of Maine, so we border New Brunswick, Canada. And the bordering river, St. John River, is what gives us our name as the St. John Valley. We are responsible at Fish River for about 2,200, just shy of 2,200 square miles in a sparsely rural populated region of Maine. We are considered frontier, so we do not have an interstate system. We do not have public transportation. We have limited resources. So we're known to have a lot of grit and determination, and we work, we do a lot with less. Although these are barriers, we do have much to offer. Aside from the beautiful four seasons, we are literally in a snowstorm right now. We do have a strong sense of community, and I feel like that's probably the thing that, I'm hoping Dr. Karen can share in our recruitment and retention efforts. We're very much, we find joy in inclusive and welcoming community experience beyond the workplace. And so, I think that most of us on the call today probably can appreciate making sure that our workplace has a strong work culture. And I would imagine if you're attending today, you have a desire to keep that going and a real thing for all of the people that we work together with. But extending that into your community, that's really what we hope to translate and share with you guys today. We're very much a community that looks out for our neighbors. We've heard stories from strangers where, a fellow broke down, knocked on the door and said, this predating cell phones, may I use your phone? And it was Thanksgiving, and the family, true story, the Fort Kent family invited this individual to the Thanksgiving dinner, and they joined the family as a stranger. And that's not an odd conversation or an odd story in our region. We're very much not just friendly or not just neighborly. We're very trusting and welcoming and inclusive. So I think that's what I was hoping to talk about today as far as what we offer. So there's about 12,600 people that live in this 2,000 square miles. So as you can imagine, that's very sparsely populated. And we serve about 9,000 of those 12,000 patients. And if you say, where do the rest go? Some of them actually cross the border into Canada for the services that are not covered, like family medicine, because we do offer optometry, dental, behavioral health, psychiatric med management, chiropractic, nutritionist, wellness programming, and like Luke talked about, our food shelf, we also offer food support to our people. So we are interdisciplinary. We have 3 service delivery sites, plus on the slides, it'll show pictures of our mobile units. I think it's the next slide, Luke, that will show pictures of our mobile units. So we've got one image of this mobile unit is a customized mobile unit. In my previous life, I was an accountant for a heavy duty truck dealership. And so I actually worked to build and design. This is a 2-suite service. The side door is actually for wheelchair bound students, and so they can access the mobile services. And on this unit, we're able to do dental, optometry, chiropractic, behavioral health counseling, biofeedback, and psychiatric med management. And we do have agreements with all 7 schools in our local region. And I think probably one of the big exciting things that I'd share is that Madawaska Community Health Center down at the bottom. That is a 30,000 square foot construction underway now. And we plan to be up and running in that new space. Right now, we're currently renting in that community. And so we'll be in that new space in September of 25. And so that's a little about us, Luke. Back to you.
And we also want to share a quick video that was made about the community. Bear with me one moment while I get this video set up, switch from the slides and whatnot. The video will allow you, well, actually, I'll let Heather talk a little bit about how the video was made before we jump into it and why we were playing it as well.
Sure. So hoping to share this collaborative energy that we took with some of our local businesses and really sort of going beyond, healthcare partners or social service partners and, partnering with the local university, the hardware store, restaurant owners, bookstore, lots of different businesses to create a recruitment video so that when we are looking to recruit staff for our respective organizations, that we had a collaborative video that really highlighted what our region looks like in all 4 seasons, as well as the people and that friendliness that I described. So this was a collaborative effort, and I would encourage anyone to consider approaching other partners in their region to do something similar. We find it very helpful, and it's a YouTube video. Thanks, Luke.
All right. And can you see the video? Is it coming through on there?
Not yet. Oh, there we go. Yep.
There is a very special joie de vivre, love of life that you see and experience with the people here in Fort Kent.
It's a wonderful place because of the energy of the people and the can-do attitude of the people and the beautiful seasons.
Pace is slower here. The area is very safe. And as my children often remind me, they're very happy to have grown up here. Fort Kent has been a place that I've always called home. And when my husband had first come up here for the first time, he said this was the first moment that he knew what the word home meant because of how he felt when he came here.
I don't think community is a strong enough word to describe Fort Kent. I really feel like it's a family. It's just a great place to grow up.
I've had an opportunity to live in many different places, and one of the things that is most unique here is the way that the community comes together. The people are what make Fort Kent. They are always friendly and very helpful, and it's like being part of a big family here.
I would say people up here are looking out for each other. It's not just that they're friendly, they'll wave to you or something like that, but people are genuinely interested in making sure that everybody in the community is doing well.
Acadian culture is warm, welcoming, and that's kind of what makes the area special.
Fort Kent's a community that provides so much opportunity for us. There's not too many places that you can go to where you can ski, you can golf, you can go to another country within 2 minutes.
For people who are active in the outdoors, this is your mecca. This is the paradise for you. The winters are awesome in Fort Kent.
There's lots to do if you find yourself adventurous, whether you do skiing or snowmobiling, the Can-Am dog sled races. There's plenty to find to do in the winter months. Go out skiing all day or snowmobiling all day, and then you go to one of the local bars and have some time to relax and warm up by the fire.
Snowmobiling's a big part of our winter industry. But all these snowmobile trails are converted to ATV trails in the summer. So there's hundreds, if not thousands of miles here in northern Maine. It's a lot of fun.
Summers in Fort Kent are amazing. There's so many resources and lakes and rivers all around us. Opportunities to go hiking, to go boating, to go fishing. There's just a nature's wonderland in our backyard, and we're very lucky to have that.
My favorite season is actually the fall season, just because of the colors, how things change so drastically from the beautiful summer to the white winter.
It's just very vibrant and beautiful. There's a lot to do. The food of that time of the year is a lot of fun to eat as well. The colors up here during that time of the year are just magnificent. And I had somebody describe it to me the other day, saying it's like a kaleidoscope of colors. And it truly is. It's just beautiful.
Cherish it while you're a part of it. That's really what it's all about. Fort Kent is a very special place, great place to grow up, great place to raise a family, great place to run a business. It's everything that you would want.
All right, with that video, and now that I want to move to Northern Maine, Heather, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Could you tell us a little bit about Fish River Rural Health's approach to recruitment?
Yeah, so I actually have a travel and tourism background, and so that really comes in handy. I enjoy travel and tourism, and so as much as I love to travel and see other things, I love to tour people in this area. So usually what I'll do is when I meet someone like Dr. Karen, who is living in Nevada, I will block 2 to 4 days of my calendar and find out what interests her and her family. So for example, I had asked her, what do you do in your spare time? And she said that she loves to crochet by the fire. First thing I said is, you're going to fit right in here. I mean, namely, we're in a snowstorm right now. So if you love to crochet by the fire, you're going to fit right in. But the types, I try to find out the types of things that they enjoy and the outdoor activities they enjoy. If they want to look at school systems, if they want to look at the university system, do they swim? Do they play tennis? What do they do in their spare time? And I really get to know the person. And then I create typically, like I said, for Dr. Karen, it was a 4-day agenda. If they have the time, I give them the time. And I do everything with them that would interest them. So, less about what interests me, but what would interest them. And I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Dr. Karen, so I would let you describe how that experience worked for you. But really just taking the time from experiencing brunch with family in a local restaurant to you attended church with my family for a service. Certainly that's always, that's not a requirement. These are all optional ideas that we give, as well as setting up time for her to meet with other clinicians that I'm not present. So she doesn't just hear from me or spend time just with me as the recruiter and the CEO. She was able to spend time with her future colleagues, should she decide. And I think it's important to mention that I knew that she was interviewing at several other locations, and some of them were the cities, which can be very attractive for a young clinician. And I recognize that. So being in a rural region, I think it's really important to engage and show that although it can be intimidating because it can appear isolating, it's a very warm, friendly environment. I mean, thankfully we have this video now, but I think back then, Dr. Karen, we didn't have that video. So I didn't have that to show you. So I really had to show you in person. And so, Luke, I welcome anything that I may have shared with you that you found of interest that you think our audience might be interested to hear. But I think really my methodology is I will give you as much time as a clinician to really experience the community. And again, if it's schools that you want to go to, I'm literally bringing you to the school, setting up time with the teachers, the superintendent. If you ski, I'm bringing you to the lodges, the biathlon training center. We have a lot of hidden gems. And so when you're in a rural area, if you're expecting somebody to sort of drive through town and take Main Street and expect them to sort of find everything and know what we have to offer, I think that would be a dangerous or a hazardous thing to try. I think, Dr. Karen, we take you all the way into the hidden outdoor training center. And if you don't know where it is, you don't know that's a hidden world-class center at the top of the mountain in town. And there are things that we can show. Luke, what do you think? I know we've had some conversations and what I consider sometimes normal. I've asked, do people have an appetite to hear what we do? I think sometimes the things we do are normal, but then other times they're pretty special, I suppose.
No, I think you covered everything really well, but I think Dr. Karen, if you could add that perspective, your own perspective on how that set you up for success. You were moving cross country. How did that really help you get settled in?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I think really a lot of what I would say kind of supports what Heather said. I think I was really honest with Heather when I came to interview. I was looking at a few different jobs and I looked at a few in Maine actually, and much more down toward the coast, kind of the travel brochure that you see of Maine. And so I really didn't know what I was getting into. And I think that what really made a difference for me was Heather, for one, to just taking the time to be someone who's running an organization, to take 4 days out of her life to come spend with me and tour me around and really give me an honest view of what I would be signing up for was huge. But I think she took me everywhere. Like we went to all 3 sites. We went to the cities around, or the towns around all of them. We went to multiple different restaurants. We had lunch with people in town. She introduced me to people who were around my age. And she really kind of paved the way for some of the early relationships that I had when I got here, that I still have today. But those were the people who, when I decided to take the job and I came here, really helped me fight the loneliness of being in a new place. I mean, I came from a lifetime of living in a suburb of a major city. I was never someone who lived in a small town. And so this was quite a culture shock for me. And Heather was always available to help me navigate the cultural politics of being in a small town, which obviously I wasn't aware of. She helped me when she helped me find my first apartment, which was another huge thing. I couldn't be here obviously to find an apartment, and in a small town, there's not a lot of, apartment finder type resources. So having someone who's kind of the boots on the ground, making sure that I found a place that was safe and comfortable and clean, and with good neighbors. My first apartment was necessary, but it wasn't the ideal setup. And so it was fine for me. I got here and was fine, but it wasn't good enough for her. She wanted me to be somewhere with that was a little closer to town and somewhere where I could really immerse myself. And in hindsight, that was huge as well, because she was the one who coordinated the moving party who got me from apartment 1 to apartment 2. And so there was just all these things that she really made herself available and really gave of her time and energy. And that not only lent credibility to what Fish River was trying to do here, but it made me trust her, and then trust in that this transition, that this change was going to be a good thing. That there was not going to be any sort of bait and switch. This wasn't a love bomb where you really make it look good and then it's totally different when you get here. Heather really followed through when I got here, and I think those two things were really big.
One thing too, you mentioned some of those early on relationships. Could you tell us a little bit more? Were there anything in particular, specific to you that was really important with other activities, or getting more involved in the community, whatever it might be? Could you tell us a little bit more about some of those early relationships?
Sure, yeah. Heather, we had brunch with a couple of different families. One was another administrator here at Fish River, and her daughter was about my age, and we really hit it off, and we became quick friends. And so when I got here, she kind of coordinated taking me out to some of these local attractions. I liked to hike, although I discovered in that time frame that I really liked the idea of hiking more than the actual hiking. But she figured that out too. And so she took me to kind of these local trails and these little kind of nature walk things that I never would have found anywhere else, because there's not a trail map at the town office that just shows you where to go find all these things. But there are, if you drive out in the woods a little ways, there are ghost trains. And they're basically, Heather can probably give you the history a little better than I can, but they're these old train cars that just got left out in the middle of the woods. And there's a little hike out there to go get them. Well, to get there, you have to drive multiple hours on the woods roads that are actually working roads. And so you have to have a specific type of radio, and you have to be able to pay attention and navigate yourself there. That's something I never would have been able to do without a connection. And Heather introduced me to the people who then took me to that, which was one of my formative memories from my first few months here, was going with a group of people out there and really getting to see the history of the area, seeing this local gem, and then having this really great day and building relationships. I met some of the other providers that way. I met some people in town who I never would have connected with otherwise. And I think that really helped me kind of assimilate into the community a little bit better. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And one thing Heather had said earlier of, taking all the time of, getting to know what each individual person really wants, that you can't take a one size fits all approach. I want to ask Dr. Hunter, your experience, you took a little bit of a different approach whenever you moved to North Carolina and started with your health center. You didn't move right into Yanceyville. Could you tell us a little bit more about the recruitment process, your decision, those sorts of things, and how that all started with your experience?
Yeah, I actually had a recruiter that helped me find this position. I was looking to move from Colorado to North Carolina. I went to Colorado single and multiplied myself times 4. I got a husband and 3 children, and we just wanted to get our kids closer to their grandparents and cousins that were living in Raleigh. The recruiter I told them I wanted Raleigh, and they kept giving me the most remote areas. And I was quite fascinated by the word Yanceyville. I wanted to see what a Yanceyville looked like. I will just say, being very honest, that's the only reason why I end up saying, okay, fine, I'll interview for the Yanceyville position. And when I went out there, I honestly, there's not much to the town. The people are amazing. And that's really why I end up taking the job at Yanceyville. The CEO and our HR director were just so just honest, um, just just great people. You can tell that they really care about the community, care about providing good quality care to the people around. And I just felt that I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to make this happen. And like you said, Luke, I was a little different because I the purpose was to have my kids be closer to their grandparents and their cousins. I felt, you know, it's okay. I lived in Texas for many years. I'm fine with driving an hour and a half to work, which Raleigh is an hour and a half from Yanceyville, and Greensboro is about 45 minutes from Yanceyville, just to kind of give you a little perspective on where things are. And so I've started working at Yanceyville in compassion healthcare in 2016, and I've been commuting back and forth 3 days a week, every day, an hour and a half each way to come to work. That's a testament to the people, just having good people to work with. You can't beat that.
And whenever we spoke earlier, you mentioned some of those connections, with being able to build those relationships with the community and be able to provide care there is so important. Could you tell us a little bit about, how you got connected with the community, through work, through your personal life, those sorts of things, to really build those, much needed relationships in working in a small town?
Yeah, as I really I feel this is a privilege for me to serve this community. And I know I didn't live there. And I definitely wanted to make sure that people understood that I'm here and I'm here to serve the community. And I'm not the next good job, I'm not going to be leaving. And I really had to, just because I don't live there, I did specific things to make sure I got to know the community. When I first started, they had a monthly community gathering where they gathered and had soup together and people just hung out. And I used to go. I used to even block a patient or two in my schedule to go and interact with the community. And like you said in my bio, I did start off as the medical director, and there were other community events that we needed to be a part of just to engage with the community. And I went there and just really tried to just meet the people. It's a small town, and personal relationships are important, and I recognize that. And I like people. So it worked out perfect for us. And any opportunity to meet people, I drive up from the time I started working there. I will drive up. I'll get there about 45 minutes before work starts, and I'll work out there. I'll go walking at the rec center or the local high school. And I've met a lot of community members we regularly walk together, people that are not patients at the medical center and some that are. We walk together every morning for the past 8 years. So just purposely immersing myself in the community in ways that I could meet people and people can meet me.
And one thing you mentioned an example of, might be misremembering the soup get together. How did you learn about some of those things? What connections help get you connected to those? Just want to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, we have a marketing director that he engages closely with the community. So local fairs, we'll always have a booth. We'll have he'll go to the senior center, just anything that's happening locally to promote our medical center. And he will always throw out, hey, there's this, I need a provider. And just because I'm a friendly person, any opportunity to run my mouth and meet people, sign me up, I would always sign up for it. And I'm pretty sure that was how I heard about the soup thing. He threw it out there that this happens once a month. and I went down there and made some good friends. Actually, some of the ladies that were part of the soup kitchen, it's not a soup kitchen. I don't think that's the right monthly soup luncheon. They actually started a farmer's market right around that time, and I would go and help them just hold a sign on the road, farmer's market this way, and just go and support the farmer's market, which is still going through this day. Actually, it made it through COVID and everything. So most of it was just the opportunities were presented, and I'm like, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Jumping back to Fish River a little bit to hear some more of their perspective. Heather, could you tell us about, and you started talking about this a little bit, but could you tell us about how some of those connections you helped make really early on, for new hires sets them up for success?
Sure. Like you said, I talked a little bit about it, but to go into a little more detail, if somebody says that they enjoy skiing, I'm not just sort of bringing them into the yard of the ski tow and sort of doing a loop and saying, here it is, and then driving off. I've actually called the folks that run the ski tow in advance, and even maybe a few friends. To Dr. Karen's point, I tried to find folks. My husband helps me remain very self-aware and reminds me that I'm not everybody else's age. And so knowing that I'm not Dr. Karen's age, I tried to find people her age so that she could feel connected and have, like-minded events and people to hang out at those events with. Because she probably doesn't want to hang out at every event with me. I like her a lot, but I also need to respect that she'd probably like to hang out with people her age, and likewise for any clinician. And so I would intentionally seek out individuals that, so say she liked snowshoeing or skiing and would like time at the ski hill, then I would find people that did that. And when we went to the ski hill, they would be waiting and welcoming and have a cocoa with her and spend time with her. And and I'd sort of go off and do something else and come back and check on her. And when I say I toured her around, like literally I was her driver. I think at one point you said you felt like I was driving Miss Daisy, because I did. I drove her everywhere. I would pick her up and bring her back to the hotel, and the itinerary would say, I will pick you up at this hour. We will meet so-and-so for breakfast. Then we'll go here, there, and there, meet other people, and then we will meet somebody else for lunch. And so that's the other thing too, is that we didn't just go to meals together. They were strategically arranged with people that I thought she would enjoy and really appreciate networking with. It actually reminds me of another clinician who shared with me that he was a history buff. He was coming in from Montana and he was a history buff. And so I actually had a classmate, because I'm from here, I had a classmate that is a pizza cook at one of the restaurants, and he runs the Historical Society. And so I had actually arranged for the Historical Society individual to deliver his pizza, and they talked history, and they hit it off wonderfully. I think they're friends to this day, and I think that clinician is actually a part of the Historical Society at this point. But anyways, to go from examples from Dr. Karen, and again, I think she can probably speak much better about them than myself, but I'm very intentional about giving them a chance for inclusion, because I am very aware that this can be an isolating region. Each of our towns, there are 11 towns, 2 plantations, and 43 unorganized territories, which means they don't have even town offices or their own zip codes. And so you really have to be connected, and you need somebody to help you connect to feel or to break that isolation in a very rural region. And so, when you think of like the town that I'm sitting in right now, there are less than 800 people that live here. How would you connect with those 800 people if somebody doesn't help you connect with them? So I think at this point I might volley it back to Dr. Karen to say, I think there were several examples of where we connected you both with colleagues, people of your age. And I know you gave great examples already, but I think we have to be very intentional about that. So for those of us as recruiters or in charge of recruiters, and I think that was the other thing you shared earlier too, Dr. Karen, I do hear from a lot of clinicians that I recruit that say I work somewhere else, but the person that recruited me didn't really have the authority to offer me some of the things they offered me. So it did feel a bit like a bait and a switch. And I actually remember having one of those conversations with you, Dr. Karen, early on. You had a colleague that had that experience out of school, and you were looking for some assurances that that wouldn't be the case with us.
Yeah, I mean, I have many more examples. As I'm listening, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that too. I just to speak on that, yeah, I actually, my residency director, who at the time being students fresh out of school and never really having had jobs because we were residents, we would talk with them about our contracts and kind of run ideas by them and say, okay, well, what about this or what about that? And I remember when I came back from my interview weekend here and talked with him about that, he was floored at the experience I had and he read through the contract and was like, yeah, like this sounds a lot like what happened to me. And he had that experience. And so I definitely, what I appreciated was that I was able to kind of discuss that with you without it being a threat. It didn't feel like you were taking that personally. You just kind of gave me the benefit of the doubt that I didn't know you. And so I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. It was a mutual understanding. And I appreciated that a lot. Because I definitely did interview with another position. And when I talked about anything that he did not love, it was a more antagonistic interaction. And I think that kind of kindness and grace goes a long way when you are trying to hire someone who's coming from away. A couple of things based on the relationships and connections. Speaking of history, I distinctly remember that I also love history. And so Heather organized a trip to the archive, the Acadian History Archive at our university in town. And like she said, she didn't just loop around, which I kind of expected her to, because I didn't really, didn't know much about Acadian history specifically. But we went right in and we sat down for like an hour with the woman who ran the archive, who is just a wealth of knowledge on French culture and Acadian history and language. She's amazing. And that relationship ended up becoming someone who I connected with at a book club I went to. So to Dr. Hunter's point, talking about kind of saying yes when opportunities present themselves, that sort of became a full circle moment that really helped me find something that I really love in the community in a book club. And I wouldn't have known a single person when I walked into that room if I hadn't met this woman who ran the archives. So kind of planting seeds that then blossom down the road. I think also something that's really important would be the connection between your team. Heather organized a meal between me and my counterpart, essentially, in our other service location, the other optometrist on staff. And she wasn't there, no administrators were there, but it was just for us to be able to sit down and talk about how we practice, how we want to practice, and we could have been as honest as we wanted to. And I think meeting Dr. Hebert was really important to me, because coming into a 2-person optometry team, if we didn't have a good relationship, that would have been extremely difficult to run a department. So having that time together where we could kind of get a feel for each other also kind of gave me faith that this was going to be a good working relationship and a good team. And the same goes with meeting my staff. I met the women who would be my team, and we had a meal together too, and I got to see their personalities and how they all work together and how they would interact with me. I think it's intimidating sometimes to come in and be like the doctor, quote unquote. And I think it was really good to have that not happen when I showed up on my first day to the office. I think it was great to have that happen organically, sort of building relationships and just getting to know each other in a really casual setting. So those were two points of the connection that I think really made a difference coming into, especially as a young provider who is coming fresh out of school and kind of out of residency training, where it's a bit of a different dynamic than kind of running your own clinic. And so I think kind of not just dropping me in the deep end was really helpful as well.
One quick question, follow-up question I had for Heather before I jump over to Dr. Hunter to hear a little bit more about her experience. But Heather, you had mentioned a little bit earlier, or well, Dr. Karen had mentioned something about the housing situation, things like that. And when we spoke before this call, you talked specifically about a willingness to learn from experience and, grow and build from that. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, of, how that's helped you, with future or working with other providers as you recruited them?
Yeah, one of the examples I would share, Luke, and I know we're time limited, so I'll share just one example, but there are many. But one of them was Dr. Karen had shared that she had, it was clean, it was safe, it was a decent apartment when she first moved in, but it wasn't the best experience, and I wanted more for her. And I remember saying this to you, Dr. Karen, but I said, I really don't want your reason to leave being your home situation, because I think you have a great work situation, you've connected well with the community, and the apartment is probably not exactly what you would wish for yourself. And so I want more for you, and we helped you find another apartment. And when I learned from that lesson, we had the opportunity to buy a home, and it's a beautiful home with a perfect location, walking distance to the college campuses, the high school games, the grocery store, the coffee shop, the bookstore. It's just a perfect location. It became an opportunity for Fish River, and we bought the house. So now we own a 2-bedroom home, and it gives a soft landing for our providers. So we actually have a new provider coming in. Just got announced, and Dr. Karen's aware of that, but we just announced a new provider coming in, a family of 5, and this home will give them a soft place to land. And we offer them, a 3-month stay, no cost, really just a chance to have a place to live. There's storage for their personal belongings while they look at the neighborhoods and decide which neighborhood they would like to live in, because that's a lot of pressure too, right? And the housing crisis is real, whether it's rural or urban, and we're as much in a housing crisis for availability or lack of availability as anybody else. And so having that home to really just comfortably settle into, and we handle everything from the power to the lawns to the snow removal, and the clinician doesn't have, that's one less worry for them when their first 3 months when they get here. So that's one of the lessons we learned in Dr. Karen's experience, actually. And so I don't know that before these conversations you knew that that's where it came from, but we learned from, okay, we probably could have done that better, because my fear was we could actually lose a clinician over the apartment we helped her find. And that might sound nominal, but it's a really big deal, right? Like, you're either at work or you're at home, and she likes to be at home. So her home environment really matters to her. And so she's not someone that, well, I'll just go out and be out most of the time and I don't care what my home is. It was actually the opposite for you. And I remember you telling me that home really meant as much, if not more, than your work environment, if I'm being accurate.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. And along similar lines, as Dr. Karen was mentioning about the relationships with leadership, were really important early on. Dr. Hunter, could you talk to us a little bit more about the relationships with your health center's leadership that really, let you know that it was a great place to work?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things was just, how open they were to just me practicing the breadth of my knowledge as a physician. I'd done some administrative roles where I was at Kaiser in Colorado, and they were just so open to have me fall into the administrative. I wasn't hired on as medical director. Later it happened, and later I transitioned to chief quality officer because it fit more with some of the training I had in the past. And they're just so open to putting you where you fit in best. And I feel as organizations are looking to recruit physicians, really look at some of the things that are of interest. And I did have an interest in doing administration, and the opportunity was presented to me. And just going back to the relationship with the administrators, they were open to my experience, open to my expertise. They're just good people to work with. I mean, obviously I would not commute all those hours just to go work for anyone. And that's another thing that we should be, especially in rural areas, for we're not in the same situation as Dr. Karen. The community is set up, we're closer to some metroplexes, that it's easy for people to not specifically live in the community. And I'm just so glad that our CEO and our HR director was really open to me not living in the community. And that is something to just maintain some flexibility on. If there are other places that, for example, I mean, my children, it was really important to me for them to be close to their grandparents. If our CEO or HR director had made even like a underhanded comment or a little slight jab or turned their nose up or questioned it a little bit, like, why do you want to live in Raleigh? I would have probably would have turned me off, because they wouldn't have seen that this was something that was important to me. So just be open, especially, I mean, these are rural areas. There's not a huge draw. And if you have somebody that's interested, don't turn them off by something that you can negotiate. And I'm so glad that our CEO and our HR director were just so open to that. I mean, honestly, these 8 years I can honestly say that both these people are my friends. It's not just people that I work for. I count them among my friends.
Thank you so much. With that wraps up our panel discussion. I did want to open up for questions, and I'll give it a second or two. If anybody has questions for our panelists about those perspectives, want to dive in a little bit deeper. As I mentioned earlier too, if you want to, if you'd like to come on and ask the question live, please feel free to raise your hand, turn on your camera, something along those lines if you'd like to ask something live.
Luke, before, I just wanted to say hi to Patricia Mata. I don't know her, but she is very familiar with Yanceyville, she said in the chat section. And that's amazing, because Yanceyville is just a blip on the map.
Great to hear. Not seeing any questions come in. I want to throw in my own question. Heather, just kind of wrapping up some of those things that you had talked about earlier. From your perspective, what are real, like, 2 or 3 keys to success in recruitment?
I think especially in a rural area, it's really just being honest, right? So we know what we do not have, but really finding the glass half full and being able to demonstrate that we have so much more to offer than the limited resources that people might see when they think rural. I think that's probably key. I think really just stepping away from describing who we are and giving them a chance to experience who we are as a community. I think that's really important to me. And then not forgetting, once we recruit them, that retention, right? So I felt a bit like, and I think I said this to you, Dr. Karen, early on, and I said, like, in case I'm not reading the room, if like I cross the line from being like interested in including you in the community to like a stalker, just say so, and I'll step it back. I can do that, but really not sort of just leaving them to their own regard. Like, okay, I showed you around for 4 days, and now you're to your own virtue. Really making sure that my presence was available. At least I was a phone call away or a text away. And I hope, Dr. Karen, you felt that way. But I think even when it came time, like you shared with them, when it came time to move from the first apartment to the second apartment, I mean, that was like maybe 8 months. So it wasn't like in the first few days, these were months later. We emptied out our snowmobile trailer, and I asked, my husband and my friends and their husbands, and I said, who's in? And I said, Dr. Karen, I'm going to introduce you to a whole bunch of new people, and we're going to move you today. And we did. We showed up at her apartment, and we literally moved her together. And then we all went out to eat, and just sort of, around here, it's a French Acadian thing. We break bread together, and it really does bond friendships and networking. And I think I think that would be my third, is that, don't forget about your recruitment. There's retention in there too. And I think that they have to be inherent. They have to be attached at the hip.
And I want to ask a similar question to both Dr. Karen and Dr. Hunter, and I'll start with you, Dr. Hunter. You mentioned whenever we spoke earlier, and you mentioned a little bit on this call as well, that a key to your success with getting connected is you like to just put yourself out there, connect and find people, get to know them. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? And if you have any other keys to success as the person, who's moving into the area?
One of the biggest things you just keep in mind is people. People actually live there. They have children, they go to church, they go to school, they have gardens. It's not like you're moving to Mars where potential aliens these are fellow human beings just like yourself. And as a physician or a provider that's looking to move to a rural area, just keep in mind that these are just regular people like yourself, and go and experience the things they've enjoyed living there. They've successfully lived there. Why can't you? And just see what it is that people do. Yes, they may be into activities that you're not into, hunting and fishing, and you may not have been exposed to, but maybe that's something that you like. I mean, last week I was walking and this guy had a big fishing boat in front of a store that I was driving, and all of a sudden I felt the urge, like, maybe I should take a fishing. That thought would never have occurred to me had I been living somewhere else. You just gain so much. If you're open to experiences, you can gain so much. If you're closed in and expect Yanceyville to be like New York City, then you're going to be absolutely disappointed. But if you're going there expecting Yanceyville to be Yanceyville, or whatever community you're going to just be itself, you'll be surprised how enjoyable it can be. And that's really how I approached it. I didn't expect it to be something other than what it is, a small town in rural North Carolina, lots of cows, lots of trees, lots of open land, country.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Karen, and then if you have two or three, keys to success from your end, and then I also see one question came in to the chat that maybe I'll throw at Heather. But Dr. Karen, what do you think are your 2 to 3 keys to success?
Oh, I don't know if I have much more to add. I think Heather and Dr. Hunter put that really eloquently. I think as the doctor moving in, I think being open is huge. You have to be open to assimilating yourself to a new culture. You have to be willing to be a little bit adventurous, and you have to be willing to bend a little bit. If you come in rigid, I think Dr. Hunter put that perfectly, is if you come into a small rural area and you expect it to be New York City, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But I think if you really come in open to it, rural areas have such a charm, and the people have such a unique way of living, and it's calm and it's peaceful and it's wonderful. And they really show up for you. So I think that would be my big one. I think the second one, also Dr. Hunter said it, would be to say yes to the opportunities. When unique opportunities come your way, say yes. I actually had a coworker here who introduced me to my husband. I came up here thinking I was going to do 2 years on an adventure in northern Maine and then go on my merry way. And I went out for a drink with one coworker who Heather introduced me to. And she knew my husband. They grew up together. And now here I am 6 years later, really, really happy. And I don't hunt, but my husband loves it. So, I mean, I think there are ways to assimilate without having to give up anything. I think it's great. So I think that's all I really have to add.
Thank you so much. And just being mindful of time, I know we're a little bit after, so I know people might be dropping off. But great question, though, and I think this is on my mind as well. Or maybe Heather, you and I discussed this a little bit earlier. But how do you balance with having to do so much with that itinerary that you laid out? How do you make that balance work?
Yeah. So I create the itineraries, and as Dr. Karen described, she would go off with staff members or groups that I had set up, and that would give me time to get caught up on my deadlines. So I would make arrangements that she was with other people for 2 or 3 hours, and I would connect them and make the introductions, and then step back, get to the office, get some deadlines met, finish up some things I had to do. When it came to the weekends, so that I wouldn't give up a lot of family time, my family joined. So Dr. Karen is great friends with my husband and son, and we've done a lot of things together. And it really just gave her this sense of family and the sense of inclusion, I think. And so I think it went both ways. I didn't have to give up my family time, and Dr. Karen benefited from being a part of a family in a small community too, because it can be very awkward to say sitting in a church service by yourself, and they say, okay, who is this young woman all by herself, sitting in a pew all by herself? And instead she was part of our family. And so people were interested to meet her, and people would come up to her and say, who is our new friend with this Pelletier family? And they wanted to meet her. And so it grew into so much more. So to answer that question is, I incorporate my family time with my tours. If my son needed a ride from the ski hill home at a certain hour, that was the itinerary. I set it that way. So if he needed a ride at 2 o'clock, then we were going to the ski hill at 2 o'clock. And so I would say, okay, I'm going to bring you here. I'm going to set you down at so-and-so for a cocoa, and I'm going to bring my son home, and I'll be right back. And so that's how I sort of juggled it. And so administratively, we make it happen. But that's what we do with limited resources, right? We're very gritty, we're very creative, and we just make it happen. So yes, I juggled a lot. And I don't see it as giving up my free time. I really enjoy it. And so that's the thing, that's the difference, right? When you said, what do you find joy in? I find joy in showing this beautiful community around. This is what I call home. And so when I first went to college, my very first speech, it was a persuasive speech, and the title of it was Drive North, because I went to college down south. And it was really about encouraging people to come up here. And so even at the age of 17, when I headed off to college, I knew that I wanted to tour people up here. So many, many moons later, I'm still doing the same thing.
That's amazing to hear, and so tough to make that balance work out. But thank you for sharing your perspectives and making it possible, showing that it is possible for anybody to be able to do that. We are over time, so I'll keep my wrap up quickly. But Dr. Karen, Dr. Hunter, Heather, thank you so much for all your perspectives, on what you've been doing these last several years. Thank you all to everybody who was able to join here today and staying on a little bit longer as we ran over. Really want to make sure that we heard all these perspectives. But thank you all again. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out via the email addresses that I'd sent out. And again, just a reminder, I will be sending the recording and the slide deck, and especially with the video, the link to that video here in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Thank you all again. Have a great day.